Welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to be making a semi-naked cake, which is one of my absolute favorites to make. We make a ton of semi-naked cakes and I'm so excited to share it with you all. So essentially a fully naked, almost really unfinished cake would be something kind of just like this with a little bit of frosting in between the layers for flavor. It's really exposed. So I love that the semi-naked or semi-iced still has cake layers exposed, but also looks really clean and finished. So let's start by trimming our layers. You really want to work with super chilled cakes for this because you don't have much time to work with it because you're not coming back to do a final ice. Your ice here is your final ice. It's your crumb coat and your final ice all in one. And even though it's semi-iced and naked or semi-naked, I'm going for a clean finish, so I don't really want to pull a ton of crumbs. If you have a room temperature cake, you will get a lot of crumbs in the cake and it'll be really hard to work with if you're going for a really clean finish. So definitely go with a chilled cake. I would say put your cake in the freezer for about an hour before you're going to use it and then bring it out and start working with it. So our tiers have been chilled and I am just going to start by trimming each layer. I've also selected a board that's a little bit smaller than my actual cake because I'm not going to be doing a final thick layer of icing like 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch like a normal fully iced cake. So I don't want to see the cake board when I'm all done, so it's got to be a little bit smaller. So we'll just start by trimming our layers. I'm just using a knife here. So now when we get to this part where we've trimmed off the top layer, we really need to get rid of all the crumbs on the side here. If you want the crumbs in there and that's kind of the look you're going for, you can totally leave it. I really don't want all the crumbs. I want to see the cake, but I don't want it to be messy, if you will. So I'm just going to brush them off with my finger. You can use a paintbrush if you want, but I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. So just use my finger. So the next layer is going to be vanilla bean. Again, make sure all of the crumbs are off. And that one's just going to be waiting. Lemon. The lemon seems to have a little bit more crumbs than, well, maybe not. Vanilla bean. Okay. Okay, so we are ready to start filling our cake and stacking. So I'm starting with my lemon layer here, and I'm just going to add some vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream. Nice layer there. I'm just gonna smooth it out with a small offset spatula, which is my preference. You can use a larger one if you'd like, but I feel like I've got a lot of control with this one. And I'm just pushing the buttercream out to the sides. I started with a huge dollop in the middle and I know it's gonna work its way out as I start spreading. So this is really similar to, it's like a combination of a crumb coat and a final ice. All the technique is kind of the same as if you were crumb coating your cake or dirty icing, but then we're gonna take some extra time to clean it up at the end so that it has like that final icing finish. Okay, that looks pretty good. Got my next layer. Again, make sure there's no crumbs that I don't need. Get off the excess, shake them off. So very gently now, I'm going to seal my edges so that my cake doesn't move a whole ton while I'm icing. So I've got my cake in position and I am just going to seal these two layers together like so. Not trying to work too much here though, because I don't really want to pull any crumbs into the frosting that I don't need to. So that's pretty good. And then we'll repeat with more frosting. You can also flavor this up, you know, and still have a stable buttercream. Like you could flavor it with white chocolate or chocolate. You could add almond extract to it for an almond buttercream and still have the stability of a regular vanilla base buttercream. If you were going to use a filling such as a jam or fresh fruit, definitely I would pipe a border around here of the vanilla buttercream and then put your filling in the middle and then start stacking. Just knowing that when you're doing that, you know, the filling isn't very set, so you kind of have to work quickly and you also have to be gentle so that your filling doesn't spill out. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, and our final layer. Okay, so that's pretty good. So if this were a cake that I dirty iced and brought it back out to final ice it, I would put a whole ton of buttercream on top, same on the sides, and then start cleaning it up. So we're really gonna take that concept with this. We're just gonna scrape off more so that the cake is peeking through. So start up here. Also, if you don't want the top to be completely covered and you want it to be exposed, you could do that too. I like when the top is covered, just because I don't know what I'm gonna do with the top all the time, and I like a full layer of buttercream on top, especially if I'm going to be stacking. It just gives me enough support for the next tier that's going on top. So very rarely do I have my top exposed. The sides for sure, but the top not all the time. So I think one of the main issues that people will run into is really with the crumbs when you start scraping on the side. How much to pull off? Have you pulled off too much that all the crumbs are coming apart and the cake is starting to rip, if you will? But if you add a full layer of buttercream or almost a full layer on the sides and then you start slowly pulling off to your liking, I think you kind of avoid that. So that's why I like to start with more and then pull off as much as I want, as opposed to not putting enough on. And then, you know, I'm already touching the cake is peeling, crumbs are coming out, and then I have to go back and add frosting. So I like to start with more and then just take off as much as I need. And you can play around with that too. You know, if you think you wanted a spot exposed and then you change your mind, go back and add frosting to it. You could take a piping bag full of buttercream and just pipe all the way around quickly if you wanted to. And now I'm filling in wherever you can see through and you can see the cake, I'm filling all of that in. So when I'm done putting my coating on here, you won't be able to see any cake, and then we're gonna scrape off until you do see cake. Okay, I think that's a pretty good start. So if you just look around, you can't see any cake. It's not a heavy coat of buttercream, like not super heavy, but it's covered, which is exactly where I want to be when I start this. There's a ton of scrapers you can use. My favorite is an acrylic scraper. So I am just going to add light pressure here. And this isn't meant to be my final go around here. This is just to see where I'm at, how much cake is gonna be coming through, and how much more I wanna take off. So just a really rough scrape here. Okay, and I've already got some cake coming through over here, which is perfect, it looks good. And this guy. So while I'm doing this, I'm also trying to make sure I'm level with the amount of icing I have on here. And that can be a little hard to do when the cake starts getting exposed. So I personally like when some of the cake is exposed like this and you can totally see it. And then some of it is barely peeking through and there's some icing going over it. So I'm kind of going for the combination of the two. And before I continue on, I'm actually gonna start working on the top here. And this is just a rough cleanup here. We're gonna go back around to give it a nice sharp finish with a bench scraper. I just don't like to spend all of my time on the side and then come back at the very end for the top. I kind of like to do both. So now I'm gonna start filling in where I have these big gaps. So there's a gap there that you can see needs to be filled in. Add a little buttercream there. And I feel like some of this frosting down here is also getting in my way when I'm trying to smooth, so I'm just gonna clean up around the cake. That way I can get really level and flush with the cake and not have any frosting in the way. All right, so I really only have cake coming through on those couple of spots that I showed you, so now I'm gonna start pulling off more. So a little bit more pressure on this go around until I start seeing a little bit more cake. And you can start to see it's coming through towards the top right here. So thus far, I don't really have any crumbs in my buttercream that I'm pulling off quite yet, so I'm safe to go back into that bowl. Lighten up on the pressure just to see where I'm at. So this looks pretty good to me. I feel like there's enough exposed cake, heavier on some parts, less on others, but you can tell some of the cake is peeking through. So I think I'm just gonna start cleaning up, knowing that this is pretty good for me. This is where I like it. It's enough buttercream to lock in moisture, but enough cake coming through. So when you get to this point, in the icing process, it's really important to not drag buttercream back on when you're scraping. So I'm gonna grab a paper towel, that way I have it ready to go for every scrape that I do. So let's go up top before I start to smooth out those places that I filled in. So every time I scrape, I'm going to clean my bench scraper with the towel so I don't drag any of the old buttercream back onto the cake. Just a very gentle scrape, and that looks pretty good. Like, that's really sharp and clean, and I'm gonna try to make sure that every other scrape after that is pretty level with that point. So scrape off, clean your scraper so there's no buttercream and no crumbs. It's totally clean. Okay, I think this cake is ready to chill. And when it comes out, we will do a final scrape up top to make sure we have the sharpest edges possible, and then we can decorate it with flowers. So let's go chill this cake. While our cake is chilling, I am going to get the flowers ready for the cake. So they require a little bit of prep work. First of all, picking out the right flowers, making sure they're bloomed enough. There's a couple different things you can do with the petals. First, I'm gonna trim so that I can work with it a little bit better. So this one, it's pretty closed. I'm gonna try to open it up a little bit, and all I'm gonna do is put the stem between my hands, and I'm just gonna shake it a little bit. It's gonna be easier if we go down. Just to try to open it some. It's a little better. Probably go a little harder before the petals start to fall off. Okay, that looks a little more open than it did before. So I'm also gonna peel off the ends, like it's a little brown here and it's kind of green up top. So we'll just completely get rid of that. This one's cracking here, we'll get rid of that one. And then you can kind of just put your finger in here and try to open these up a little bit more, just being gentle that you don't break the petals. Now, some people like to actually take these petals and fold them. Like that. And you can kind of keep going around. I think we'll put one on there on the cake that looks like this because I like that. Most people, I don't know. I guess it just depends on the person. I've ran into some people that feel like it's a little too modern, it's a little too bold for them, but I think it's pretty. And you also have to have petals that are willing to bend that way, and usually when they're more bloomed, it's a little easier to do. So I'm gonna just try to spread out this flower. That way it kind of looks like it all goes together. Looks pretty good to me. So I'm thinking I want this to be kind of tall on the cake, so I'm gonna trim just a little more. Now I took some tips from one of my other videos. People had a lot of comments about the flowers, and there's a couple different things you can do. We could totally cut off the stem here if we wanted and insert some floral wire. Really, I don't feel like we need to do that unless we're trying to have specific placement and we need to stick the flower in a really particular area that doesn't allow for us to go in with this. But we do need to cover the stem with a ton of floral tape so we're not sticking, you know, a fresh stem into a cake. So, got floral tape here. Just tear a piece off. And it really seals itself with the heat of your hand, so I usually start up pretty high, just turning the flower and going pretty tight all the way around, overlapping. And then I want to make sure I get a really good seal here at the bottom. So I'm pretty much coming back onto itself, and now I'm going up. Okay. And then right when you get here at the end, just use the heat of your hand, just seal it on there, just like that. We gotta fix our flower a little bit. Okay, so that's ready to go. And we're gonna go through all of these flowers and do the same thing. We're gonna get our fillers ready. I do suggest when you're doing floral arrangements, depending on the look you're going for. I do suggest fillers. They're my favorite because you can go with 3 or 4 really nice flowers and then fill in with all of these, and they're different, they're unique, and they're fun. So we're probably gonna use some of this. A bunch of different greenery here. I think I'm gonna try to use all of these. So we're gonna prep these flowers and then we'll be right back to place them on the cake. Okay, welcome back. Our cake is ready to go. The flowers are prepped. I have some dehydrated blood oranges and my topper. So I think once I tidy up here, we can start assembling all the decorations. So once the cake is chilled, I like to take it back out and clean up the top once more. So it's pretty clean, it's pretty sharp. I'm just gonna go over it again, not really trying to pull too much off, but really just trying to smooth it out. And same thing we were doing before, just wipe off every time. And you know, honestly, because we are putting flowers on here, it's not completely necessary, it's just kind of habit. I like to make sure I've got the sharpest edges possible. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so that's going to be the front. We are gonna add our flowers and all the other decor that we have. So, I'm gonna bring this towards me. I think I'm gonna do a little floral up here, a little at the base. And I'm gonna start with this flower that I want to be elevated. I think we're gonna have it kind of going this way. I'll place it in here. And I think that's a nice start. That looks pretty good, and we can kind of build around it. So I did find a little note in one of our videos about using a straw to put our flowers in to the cake. So I'm gonna try to put a straw in here and then put some greenery in there and see how that works. I've already wrapped it in floral tape anyway, but let's try it. Actually, I kind of like that, it's nice. Sometimes it can be hard to just, you know, start putting flowers and greenery into the cake because you're kind of trying to dig your hole, but putting the straw in is nice, it does it for you, and then you just insert your flower. So, let's put one here. Let's go with this guy. Yeah, that looks nice, I like that. This one I might change a little bit. I'm gonna position it a little more at an angle and like shooting off the cake. That will be good for this piece here. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, So we'll insert a flower here. And I really want to get a blood orange in here. So we dehydrated these for 8 hours overnight, and when we first took them out, they really weren't pliable. They were really, really hard. I put them in a bag for 24 hours and they're dehydrated still, but they're a little more pliable. So now I'm gonna cut and twist a little bit. Yeah, before when I first took them out, I would not have been able to do this, but now I can. So I'm gonna put this blood orange here. I like that, I think that's really cute. And we'll add a little floral over here. I think I'm gonna try to get the orange a little bit higher in a second once I get another flower in here. And I'm just spreading the flower out a little bit while it's in place. Looks like I need another flower to kind of fill in this gap over here in the corner. That looks better. So I want to place my topper now, that way I can see where I might need more floral or where I need to take away floral. Okay, so I think I want it nestled right there in the middle of the floral arrangement. I am just going to pull back on this larger flower a little bit. And we're gonna try to shift this greenery down just a little bit. Nice thing about greenery is it's pretty pliable, so you can kind of bend it however you'd like and it'll pretty much stay put. So that looks good. I just have a little gap here that I want to fill with greenery. So let's see what I have available that's already wrapped. Okay, I think that looks better. And we'll just do a touch of blood orange and floral at the base. So I'm really just going to adhere it right there. Got a flower there, and then let's add greenery. I have to go a little bit shorter, kind of come up here, and then maybe one more tiny flower right there. I think that'll look nice. And then I think I'm gonna have a little greenery coming over onto the orange. Okay, I think that looks pretty finished. There we go. So we've got a semi-naked cake with a fresh floral arrangement, all of the flowers, the greenery, they're totally wrapped with floral tape, and we have a nice acrylic congrats topper and a little bit of dehydrated blood orange. So this would go perfect for any kind of congrats celebration. Could be a graduation, an engagement, a wedding, whatever you like. This really goes for any kind of design. You can dress it up, dress it down, however you like. If you have any questions, comments, if you've made a semi-naked cake, or if you prefer a totally naked cake, let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you guys make a semi-naked cake or a naked cake, please don't forget to tag us on Instagram at AbbeyCakesCo. We'd love to see what you created and share your photos. Thank you.